We're in danger of resuming. I'm going to reopen the meeting. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item 12, the membership of local government New Zealand. Did you not hear me?
No.
For those who are not paying attention, I'm reopening at item 12, the membership of local government New Zealand.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And we are about to be addressed by... One moment. Warwick and Rose. Warwick McNaughton, Principal Advisor, and Rose Leonard, Manager Governance Services.
Kia ora koutou. I hope you know us by now. This report, councillors and Mayor, asks you to make a decision about continued membership on Local Government New Zealand. It gives you information about the benefits and costs of membership with LGNZ, and it also provides you with the feedback that we've had from local boards. That feedback, we've had 18 pieces of feedback, our 18 local boards have given us their feedback. Roughly, if I had to summarise it, 15 in support of staying a member, 2 in support of resigning, and 1 with mixed views. With respect to the costs associated with our membership, it's split into 3 parts. The first is 353k of our subscription fees plus GST, 25k subscription to the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and 20k roughly over the last, per year, if I look at the last 2 years, for conference attendance and meeting attendance. These costs are those that we can easily see. The costs that are harder to see are those which include staff support, which we don't spend time counting. If I had to put an estimate on the various activities or support that we undertake, it would be up to 2 FTEs across a range of staff and those with varying salary bands. So a bit difficult to monetise, but if you had to have a back of the envelope calculation, it'd be around about 200,000. The report also provides information on the benefits, and we've outlined some of those, but not all. Mainly we've focused on those that are benefits that are realisable in the future, i.e. ongoing benefits. The main one of which you'll see in your report is the street lighting profile that Auckland Transport will have the ability to use from 1 July onwards. That will save us over $1 million. And with that, Your Worship, I'll just hand over for questions.
Okay, maybe I should talk a little bit about this because it's probably I initiated this. I have had previous experience in the past with local government New Zealand when I was a mayor elsewhere, and we had a period when we were in it and a period when we were not in it. At the start of my mayoralty here, I received 1,300 negative messages by email of people who opposed being members of local government New Zealand. My experience is that local government New Zealand has rural, metro, regional, and us really, because we are the only one like ourselves. The experience in the past is that local government New Zealand members have voted against things which the previous council had views on, such as 3 Waters. The cost is about 640 grand when you add all those bits together. They need us a lot more than we need them, and as far as the ECA savings goes, it's taken them 12 years to get those, and they're not hard to get, and if we whip out of that, they'll find that they won't get them and we can get them. I have had plenty of experience having chaired 2 power companies, that if you want to get those things, it's size that matters. We do have close relationships with Kaipara, Whangarei, Far North, Christchurch and Hamilton as it stands, at the mayoral level. The bit that I really drove me to drive this, as well as an easy saving, is that the worst bit of the LGNZ was that it fulfills the function of making it really easy for the Minister of Local Government to dispense with consultation by going to a meeting of mayors in Wellington and making a 1-hour speech. The fact of the matter is that by staying on your own, we force them to come and see us. And there is no shortage of consultation between senior members of the government and this council at my level at all. So that sort of sums up my views of it. So I'm strongly in favour of not doing this. Lastly, although in the last couple of years we've clamped down a bit on people flying to various functions, we did find in Howick that some years ago 9 of them went to the conference in Queenstown, and my band regularly plays at conferences when they're held in the Bay of Islands, and watching 800 members of local boards, no wonder they love them all getting completely pissed and dancing all night long for no benefit whatsoever to the ratepayers, has kind of questioned the value of it. So there you are, and if they want to take associate membership, they're welcome to cough up out of their own funds and do that. So there we are, there's a background to it. I will take further inputs from anybody else who's got views. No doubt there'll be other people with different views to mine, I'm sure, and there's one of them. Councillor Ferry,
are we able
please.
to ask questions? Because I have a question.
Oh, questions.
Thank you. So if Auckland Council does withdraw, is there any mechanism by which individual local boards can join, or are we all in or we are all out? Thank you.
Through the chair, I've been advised that the associate membership has not really been designed for local authorities and local boards. However, I think we could work with LGNZ to ask if a category could be created for local boards, but it's suffice to say that it might not actually be a membership or type of membership that would suit local boards. For instance, there would be no ability to vote if they were associate members.
Sorry, just to follow up to that, I mean, I assume that alongside that would also be the loss of the local board representative on the council. Like there would be no guarantees about any of that either, is that correct?
In fact, I can say that there would be no ability for that member to be on the National Council. Is that what you're talking about?
Okay, so when we're making this decision, we're actually also making this decision potentially on behalf of local boards?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Leone, please.
I just wanted to check if we've received any advice on associate membership for Te Maruata and the YEM group. So if we were to pull out, what would that look like going forward?
Associate membership, again, is something we would have to work with LGNZ on, so I can't really answer that question, but it's my understanding that that wouldn't be possible. Associate membership doesn't give us a lot of the benefits. It's not been designed for local boards.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. If we decided not to go ahead, Rose, that means that we could change our minds in a year's time, though. Just 1 year is easy, isn't it?
As far as I'm aware, we could rejoin, yes.
I can show that you can, because the Far North District went in and out of it, and then out of it, in of it, and then out of it. It depended on where the conference was, it seemed to be. When it was in Queenstown, everyone was very keen on it, but when it was in the Bay of Islands, they weren't.
Just a question. So obviously we've measured some of the costs, but what would would you have any idea of the cost of leaving, as in reputational, the Auckland versus everyone else sort of divide, the cost of the fact we fought for 3 places on National Council? I assume if we joined again, we would lose we would have to spend a long time getting those seats back on the National Council.
I can't speak on behalf of LGNZ. If you wanted to have a more fulsome answer to that, Scott Nicklin is still here, the Deputy Chief Executive. But with respect to costs, the the cost we can't monetise, the benefits which are softer, if you like, those of belonging to a bigger sector, of having a New Zealand Inc. approach. Obviously, Auckland is going to look like it's, on its own.
I guess another question. So a lot of the time, MPs from many parties have told me that local government New Zealand put in very strong submissions on behalf of all of us. We feed into that. So we would need to ensure that we were doing quite separate work.
And indeed, we often do submit on our
I think they did on the Three Waters because the Auckland Council's view was different from the LGNZ's on that one. So that, and you find that most councils end up putting their own one in because quite often the individual one is different from the major. So there's nothing unusual about that.
And just on the future for local government work, would that add work to what you all do to help us engage in that system? I know that you've worked with LGNZ before to bring forward all those policies and things with all the reform and changes. They often do a lot of the research for us, I guess.
It's my understanding that we jointly do the research and we participate in the research and participate in the conversation. That's through officers, so my understanding that membership would mean that we wouldn't participate in that. But we would continue to do our own work on the future for local government.
So the cost of this, the extra staff, the 200k, potentially would be the same, if not more, because you'd be doing different parts of the work anyway?
With respect to the costs, I think we will be doing our own work on the future for local government anyway. The additional bit of work, which hard to cost, would be that we would join with LGNZ in forming views, but we would regardless do our own work. So I don't know that the cost would be much different.
Councillor Foley, please. Talofa, Councillor Foley, are you there? Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mayor. Rose, I'm not sure whether you know all this level of detail, but it's about the local government funding agency, I think it is, which we benefit from. My understanding is that the main driver of working that up, and I think it was about 2010, 2011, was local government New Zealand. Is that correct? Were they the main driver?
Thinking back to that time, I believe that Auckland Council's then Treasurer was also a big part of that, Mark Butcher. So we have our own membership with the funding agency.
Yeah, I know that's direct. I understand there's a body of work that local government New Zealand were about to report to us and workshop with us on the ratepayer funding scheme, I think it's called. Are you aware of that?
I am, and I have sought advice from our finance team, and I believe that we would have, they might have some comment, but that we have sufficient access to funding on our own.
And the local government funding agency chairperson approached me directly to raise that, and so it didn't come via LGNZ, it came via the local government funding agency chairperson Craig Stobo, who has a system that he wants to introduce, and we have that down for a workshop with the governing body, I believe.
Yeah, through you, just to add to that, the LGFA was really formed through some member councils, including the Treasurer, well, the previous Treasurer of Auckland Council was heavily involved, as was some investment banks and that sort of thing. To be fair, I wouldn't overplay the role of LGNZ. And as for the ratepayers financing scheme, again, that was a brainchild of a private investment bank. So again, I wouldn't overplay the role of LGNZ on that.
But they have a role. I mean, I thought they've been playing a key role in both of those. Look, it's a shame we can't actually bring local government New Zealand to the table at this stage to pose these questions. I should have posed them earlier. Just in terms of look, our contribution to local government New Zealand, and it's a significant one to be part of that collective. Would it be fair to say that local government New Zealand's role in supporting the flood response in Tairāwhiti, Hawke's Bay, the Kaikoura earthquake, the Christchurch earthquake, our participation has helped support the collective response of local government New Zealand to all those communities? I'm looking at the side of the ledger where we're actually contributing to the nation rather than looking for what we got.
Through the chair, any organisation that seeks to bring us together as a sector is helpful and beneficial, but whether it's, the issue on the table at the moment is really whether you spend that money and whether you see value in that.
Yeah, but I'll go back to my main point there is there are small councils around New Zealand that are likely to benefit from our membership. Because they do not have the resources to drive these things themselves. Now, I guess my question is, has Auckland's membership contributed to the support that local government New Zealand is giving to Tairāwhiti and Hawke's Bay and has given to Kaikoura and Christchurch before and probably others? Because I understand they have task forces that swing into action and have done recently.
I'm not aware of anything that LGNZ has done to coordinate the sector in that regard, and again, I think though if we weren't a member, Auckland would nevertheless, through other channels, reach out and try and help those agencies just through staff and other mechanisms. I don't believe that being a member would be a barrier, or not being a member would be a barrier to Auckland reaching out to other councils and help like we have, and they've helped us.
Good questions. Our recent January 27th event did result in help coming from some other councils in terms of providing business, building, additional building consent guys to work with us, and I worked with the group from Hamilton, and the Mayor of Hamilton rang me and said, could she send some? But it wasn't coordinated by anybody other than they rang me. I've got Councillor Newman, please.
Can you just confirm whether funding from the Department of Internal Affairs and Treasury assists local government New Zealand's policy shop so as to be able to assist small councils who don't otherwise have that that policy capacity in-house, or they can't necessarily afford to buy it in if they don't already have those staff?
I'm sorry, I can't speak on behalf of LGNZ whether that would still exist if we weren't there.
Well, no, I'm assuming it would because it's funding from central government and not from councils. But if you can't confirm that, that's okay. Like Councillor Darby, I probably should have asked that question of LGNZ earlier, but thank you.
Okay, I've got no more. Well,
Are we going to have some comments, Your Worship?
yes, by all means. Councillor, I've got to move and second. Before we do this, we have to move and second something. We've got some options in here. I propose to move that we receive it and go to B, and if we don't win B, then we have to go to C.
Councillor Foley's back online for a question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Foley has emerged from the... Councillor Foley, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, team, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, in terms of, because value for the money that we put in, that's been brought up. We heard earlier on from two of our young elected members from Auckland, Member Saul and Member Henare, on the value that they've gotten from LGNZ as young elected members, as young Māori as well. And I can certainly attest to the value that I've gained from being a part of LGNZ as a Pacifica elected member. If we were to pull out, are there programs in place or is there funding set aside to provide that kind of support for our young elected members, for our Māori members and for our Pacifica members? And if not, is there funding that local boards, elected members would be able to source in order to still attend those activities that are run by LGNZ, even if we were able to attend as associates perhaps, but I know there's a cost involved. So would council, is there a pool, a discretionary funding pool or whatever, that local boards and elected members would be able to access in order to still get that support from LGNZ? Kia ora. And how much would it cost?
Through the chair, there is no alternative to the very helpful work of LGNZ and the membership for young elected members and through Te Maruata to Māori elected members. Council doesn't run anything like that at the moment and there is no budget for that. If LGNZ were to consider associate membership for local boards, then there would be the ability, is my understanding, for those associate members to participate in meetings, but not to vote. And that's an if LGNZ created a category for local boards. It's not a category that's really been designed that way, I might add.
Bit of a shame, really, because
Kia ora. And
our local boards are bigger than half of the councils.
Yep,
Thank
agreed.
you, Councillor
Worship.
Lottie Fully, Councillor Williamson, and then Councillor Walker. Hey? Oh, sorry, put you off. Councillor Walker, have you got a question still, or are you? Right. If you look at your paper, you've got the ability to receive the feedback, A, which is fair enough, and either B or C. So I'm going to propose that we do A and B, and if we lose B, we will then go to C, D, E, F, G, and H, and I, and J, and K. So that the second one's only become an option if the first one is lost. Now you can speak to it.
No, we'll need a seconder,
The
please.
seconder was
For A and B.
A and B was Williamson. Now we can have a discussion. I've got Baker and then Dalton and Ferry and Deputy Mayor.
Oh, thanks, Lewis. So look, I know we're going to come at this from a, it's already been talked about, we're going to come at this from a financial thing. We can't afford to do this. Quite my mate Ken. But I'm going to respond to that in a different way, and I don't think we can afford to get out of it. And I actually see this as part of our core business. And I approach that looking at it from 75% of Auckland's landmass, which is rural. And I spoke in my maiden speech about how we are, and Stuart Crosby talked about it earlier on, that we are New Zealand's largest urban city. We are also probably New Zealand's largest rural council. And we don't do that well at all. We are an urban-focused council, and we do not do rural well. And so the opportunity that is afforded us by being part of the regional sector, then which aligns, and the rural sector, which then has a great crossover into the provincial sector, allows us to actually learn. And we're not, just because we're big doesn't mean that we can't learn. So the opportunities for us to actually learn how to do rural is given to us by being part of LGNZ. It doesn't come any other way. And I look around this table and I hear people talking about their experience and stuff. You've got no experience other than the mayor who was a mayor of a rural council for a couple of terms, in and out of LGNZ. But we do not do rural well. Auckland is a very, very important cog in a very, very large machine that is local government New Zealand. If you take that cog out, we actually expose ourselves, and we actually expose, I believe, other councils in terms of we're not doing our bit. And so I believe we should be staying. LGNZ, if we are unhappy, and I see a lot of unhappiness stems from some of the decisions in terms of what LGNZ may or may not have done in terms of Three Waters. LGNZ is a democratically elected body. If we are unhappy with it, then exercise our democratic right, exercise our democratic power in being able to adjust. I can't see the point in going out for a year and back in a year when I hear that the problems are not just financial, it's how LGNZ is run. What's the point if we're not in there trying to change it? You won't change it from the outside. We can only change it from the inside. And if we want to change it, and we want to have better, and we want to have a better way of influencing things, then do it from the inside, because you won't be able to do it sitting from the outside going, oh, we'll come back next year. So I won't be supporting B. I will be supporting C if we get that opportunity, and because I think we can drive some change, and we can only do that from the inside. And I think it's already been used this week potentially, but I think it's more, it's an amount of money, yes it is, but isn't it a bit like the coins down the back of the sofa or the couch, I think is how it might have been referenced earlier in the week, but in the big scheme of things. So I believe that we should be staying, and it's not just about, it's about all of Auckland, and it's not often that local boards actually are really, really tight on something. And so while two of them might have said no, one of them was, well, we'll say no with this year and come back next year. And so actually they're supporting being part of LGNZ. They're just saying not this year, which doesn't make sense. So, because there's no magic rainbow, or rain, might be a big gay rainbow at the end, Morris, with a pot of gold on it, but I don't see it.
I'm the only gay rainbow around here as far as I know.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dalton, please.
Thank you. And just to build on what Andy has spoken about, we matter in this whole local government New Zealand dynamic. We matter. We matter to the other councils that are there, and we matter to our local boards and our other members that are in it. And for people that choose not to participate or choose not to engage, don't be making a judgment on the people that being a part of LGNZ matters too. It matters in their professional development, their personal development, their relationships, the influence that we can have as a council, the influence we can have as young elected members, the influence local boards can have. And because you might not have experienced it yourself, there are people that have and have gained a lot from it. We are a strong influence in central government in many, many areas. Just because we lose some stuff doesn't mean that we don't make a big difference, and we take other councils with us. Other councils looked to us, and I just feel, well, for one, I don't think we would be going back in it in the next 3 years, because for the reasons that you've given your worship for us not to be in there, tells me quite clearly we won't be going back in. So I don't think that out for a year and back in is going to be an option. That's probably, I've lost my thoughts, so I can't remember the next thing I was going to say, except that I will be not voting for B. I think it's too important. What I was going to say, we can't continue to say we're out of everything. We're doing this a lot in our budget. The money that we put into the homeless program, or we're just going to say, actually, central government's business, although we have the police, Salvation Army, everyone else sitting around the table, as a council in our city, for our homeless people, we're going to say, we're out. You guys deal with it. And now we're going to do it with LGNZ, say, actually, we're out, we're okay. We're not okay. This is New Zealand Inc., and we should be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Simpson, rather.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, I've listened today. I sort of was on the fence on this, and I've come to the conclusion that overall I'm not that convinced of the merits of staying as a member of LGNZ. A case has been made about the benefits of advocacy by LGNZ to government, and that Auckland Council, as the biggest local authority, should remain integrated with LGNZ as a sector organisation. But I'm looking at this a bit differently. In my view, ongoing membership potentially gives the impression that Auckland is no different from other local authorities. And all too often, we see government ignoring the fact that Auckland has its own bespoke governance model. We've seen this in Three Waters, where a nationwide policy has been promoted which does not take into account how our model has largely met those challenges of infrastructure since we were established. So in the legislative context, government has continuously ignored issues that we have raised with them, such as council not having the final decision on its regional transport plan or ensuring we have an integrated set of cultural institutions and stadia. So leaving LGNZ will potentially help us make the case to government that we have distinct issues and challenges, not to mention a distinct different structure from the rest of the local government sector. We are bigger, more diverse, and COVID aside, going faster than most other territorial authorities. On the most important issues facing Auckland, I believe we can make progress by ourselves. With strong political leadership, we can take those issues forward with excellent staff who can support that advocacy. And I don't really see what value the LGNZ bureaucracy adds to this. I'd like to test my theory though, so I am prepared to trial for a year at least, not renewing that membership, to see what, if any, impact it has. I do listen to the local boards though, so I would, however, support local boards being able to make any membership decisions as to associate membership themselves. So those are my thoughts, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferry, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to start with this contention that we're broke, which I've heard a few people say around the table in the last week. We're not broke. Can we please stop saying that, because it's not true and we're misleading our community while we're consulting on the budget by telling people that we're broke. And words mean things, and telling people we're broke has consequences, and we're not. So I put to one side the financial arguments around this, which I think are not strong. I would also like to mention a number of people have said about the conferences. Now, I attended one conference. Most of the people around the table will know I don't drink alcohol, so I certainly wasn't one of the people getting drunk on the ratepayer dime, which seems to be the implication is all that happens at the conferences. That definitely was not my experience when I attended the Dunedin one. I have not attended one since, despite having the opportunity to, because I've looked at the agenda and thought, actually, that stuff's not for me, and that's okay. But I know that it has had a lot of value to a lot of other elected members, and the one that I did attend in Dunedin, I was able to make a number of personal connections with people around the country, which I've been able to keep up. At that time, I was in the young elected member category. I am no longer. But I would just point to those being enduring relationships, that the support that you get from each other when you're in that category tends to last once you age out of it as well. I agree with the points Andy made about the rural side. I think they're really well made, and I thank you for bringing that perspective. I'd go a little step further and say Auckland as a region is rural, urban and suburban, and that's what we see in our colleagues around the table at LGNZ. As we, although yes, we are special and we are different, we bring a valuable contribution to them and they bring a valuable contribution to us. I also note that by far the majority of local boards are in favour, and this decision that we are taking, we take on their behalf, and I'm mindful of that, having come from local board land. We may make a decision today that we think is severing our relationship. It is severing their relationship as well, and I do not believe we should do that against their will. Finally, I have experience in the past, feels like a very long time ago now, of being involved in a students' association which went in and out of the national student body. it not only created major mayhem for the local Students Association, it also created huge uncertainty for the student voice across the country at the time. And actually that has not really ever recovered from what happened in the late 90s. So for that reason, and because I believe we are stronger together as a city and also as a sector, I will be voting against B. I also ask that we take A and B in parts because I have no issue with A and I think probably nobody does, but I think B is where the split vote probably is. Thank you.
I think the separating A and B is not an issue, and so as a mover and second, I'm sure we can do that. Now I've got most of you. Councillor Darby.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm disappointed that we even have to debate this, really. I know there's some challenges in our membership at local government New Zealand, but look, I've heard those over the years. Not that I personally have been, closely involved, but other councillors have been, and they've reported back over the years. Getting recognised that, some of those big urban issues do need greater recognition there. But look, the way to do that is through participation. It's that, we need to up our game in that regard rather than do an exit. And Auckland has a massive responsibility to participate in collective bodies like local government on the national issues that it convenes, groups to discuss. I can't help but stress enough that our role at Auckland, at local government New Zealand, is not all about taking and gaining. It's about contributing and allowing other territorial authorities to learn from us as well as us learn from them. And, we've been contributing indirectly, supporting our local government New Zealand of recent in Tairāwhiti and Gisborne, down there in Hawke's Bay, and previously in other parts of New Zealand. I think if we just pretend that we're some faraway fiefdom that can exist without local government New Zealand and disconnect from the rest of New Zealand, I think we're just kidding ourselves. I think that is at our peril, particularly when we want Auckland to be recognised by, Wellington, government Wellington, and other New Zealanders about the importance of investing and supporting Auckland. We often talk about us here being the nation's only international city, and we are, and that is not likely to change. There's not going to be a second one. There's only going to be one. And international cities, they underpin their nations. They support their nations. That's what they do. And they take that responsibility seriously, and they support small towns and cities, rural communities, you name it. And those places rely upon our leadership. Let's not forget that. And in our membership of local government, if we bail on that leadership, we will be the losers. In time, we will be the losers. And I don't think we can afford to be an isolated lone voice up here in Auckland. We're large and we can get a bit louder, but we'll be alone in many respects. And I think we risk being alone when we approach central government for their support, because they will have seen us bail on the national collective in the area of local government. So I don't want to see us become, the laughing stock. I want us to see, us putting Auckland in an advantaged position, but also the other local territorial authorities. There's just no advantage in us becoming, self-interested and an isolated state up here at 37 degrees. I mentioned earlier in questioning, I do know that local government New Zealand, they do have a task force that responded to Christchurch. They had a task force that responded to Nelson, to the Kaikoura earthquakes, and more recently on the East Coast. We are contributing to that response, to all those many thousands of people down there. They're actually benefiting from our membership, because we're giving the mandate to local government New Zealand to bring together that response. I think it would be really cold-hearted sadly, if we left local government New Zealand. My preference is that we, take up the challenge in the areas that we need to maybe get local government New Zealand to listen to us more strongly on, and that is all the other contributing parties, and really strengthen that relationship, strengthen our sphere of influence. That's what we need to be doing, not putting effort, or, there's no effort in just bailing, putting effort into constructing a better outcome for Auckland there and for the other TAs, rather than just doing the quick and easy bail.
Thank you. Councillor Leone.
Kia ora. Look, I just want to first of all start off by saying we are, the biggest city in Aotearoa, and we should be at all of the decision-making tables. I know that I've heard here today that there have been disagreements about the outcome of decisions that have been made at LGNZ, but regardless, we have been at the table. I just want to also speak from a Wahine Māori perspective, and coming through the support networks of Te Maruata, and, stating that I'm the first Wahine Māori here as a councillor for the super city. And that has come through the support of Te Maruata. We don't have that support here currently sitting around the table. We do. I know that we've got definitely councillors that do support in the background, but we do not have anything within the Auckland Council that actually grows that leadership and grows that support and looks at our new leaders coming through like Logan and Narissa and others. So, I actually believe that I'm sitting here today due to some of that support that's come from that wider network. So I just want to acknowledge, the positive impact of that for myself. I also just want to reiterate what we've talked about today in terms of a majority of local boards support us remaining in there. So if we are going to listen to our local boards, who are obviously a mix of the right and the left, because this discussion today is not about left-leaning or right-leaning. This is about us doing the right thing for Tamaki Makaurau. And if 15 local boards have said we should stay in, then we should be taking that seriously. Thirdly, I just want to reiterate the fact that if we look at it from a financial perspective, and I know that there's been debates around obviously the 1.1 million and the fact that it's 300,000 or so per year for us to be in there, well, that would be covered if we are going to have that money, that 1.1 million. So actually we're not losing any money. And if we are to cut back by saying, look, people have to pay for their own flights and things like that, which we already have done as local board members before. When I've gone to LGNZ conferences, I was more than happy to cover my own flights. Logan's just talked about that today, that he raised his own funds within his community to attend those conferences and be part of LGNZ because he understands the significance and the importance. So aside from us as councillors, we have to think about the wider city and what the wider city wants. And 15 local boards have said yes, so I think that we should be going with that. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. John Watson, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And I guess from the statistics or the discussion we receive in the paper, a number of our local boards, nearly all of them, in fact, are more than the size of the average council through New Zealand population-wise, 85,000. That's not even half the Albany ward, but I think that if the local boards then see sufficient value in being a membership, then they should pursue that themselves. They're big enough to do that. Auckland Council, we are told, is able to, and this is in the paper, it's not coming from me, is large enough to provide policy advice and elected member development without calling on LGNZ services. I think that's a fairly telling observation there that have been made by our officers. As far as the cost goes, I think someone likened it to a bit like, the coins down the back of a sofa or something. Well, 650 grand all up, that's
too far short of 7 years or nearly a decade's funding for a youth centre. So I know where my priority would be. I think in our present position, we do have to start attributing value and significance and weighing things up. I mean, if we're talking about the role of LGNZ, I mean, if we see that as being, analogous to being, a member of a union or a professional association, you kind of pay your dues on the basis that in the first instance, that organisation, backs you up, gets good terms and conditions, but probably more importantly on a personal level, certainly as a union goes, they're there to back you up when you need them when something of substance comes along. And as Councillor Simpson says, that's not altogether clear whether that happened with Three Waters or Plan Change 78 for that matter, which are two pretty substantive issues for our area. As far as relationships go with other councils, I don't see this as really affecting that at all. The best interaction I've had since my time on the council was with Councillor Stewart when we went and saw the Kaikoura District Council following the earthquake, and they were really good. There was nothing to do with the LGNZ. It was just a one-on-one contact, and a good relationship was established there. So maybe this move might encourage us to perhaps be a little bit more proactive in our relationship with our other countries, because some of the speakers are right. We should provide a leadership role. We don't. We certainly haven't in the last 6 years. We've just been like follow the leader. So perhaps this is an example for Auckland to be a bit more of a spokesperson or a leader when it comes particularly dealing with increasing government intervention in local government. It hasn't been particularly evident from LGNZ. It's been non-existent from Auckland Council. So maybe we have to paddle our own canoe a bit and be a bit more visible in the leadership of local government. So on the basis of that, Mr. Mayor, I'll be supporting the recommendation. And as I said at the outset, if there's people or local boards that feel sufficiently aggrieved by this, then they will have that option to pursue that themselves for their own local board area, which is the equivalent of most of the councils that are members of LGNZ. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foley, please.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you everyone for your points. I'm not going to be supporting B for very similar points to those made by Councillor Baker, Councillor Dalton and Councillor Leone. I talked a little bit about the support that our young elected members received and our Māori from Te Marawata, but also our Pasifika elected members, because we've been welcomed into those networks, and we've certainly really gotten lots of value out of the ability to sit together with other elected members from around the country to share our experiences, to network, to mentor, to train, and to develop our skills. And as Councillor Leone said, and as was, confirmed by our staff, our council doesn't provide that kind of support for young elected members, for Māori, for Pasifika elected members. We certainly don't have a budget for it, and I don't think we are planning to have a budget for it in the future. So there's a lot of that benefit that is very difficult to quantify in terms of money. And I think that benefit that we gain from being a member of LGNZ, it's something that is perhaps far more valuable than the subscription fees, the membership fees that we pay, especially if we ourselves as a council are not considering having anything like that in our own planning going forward. So I would hate to see us lose that connection and lose that support. I'm also mindful around the local boards, and I know that Councillor Watson has just spoken about, well, the local boards are just as big as or bigger than most of the councils involved, and they should be able to go ahead and become a member. But we've also heard that that's not necessarily guaranteed. So we don't know even if local boards would be able to participate as associate members, and even if they were, they probably wouldn't have voting rights. And even if they were, minded to do so and pursue all of that, we know that there's probably no budget to provide that support to do that for each individual local board, given that, the current constraints and given that many of them are facing 50%, 60% LDI budget cuts as part of this, environment that we're in. So I just don't think that that's actually a possibility in terms of what Councillor Watson was saying. So for me, as a Manukau Ward councillor, I'll be supporting the position of our 2 local boards, and as a regional councillor, supporting the position of the 15 local boards, because I certainly don't want to make a decision that would mean that they would be completely cut off and cut out, and it would be a very difficult journey for them to try and see if they could still become a member in some way, shape or form of LGNZ. I agree with the other comments made by my colleagues, and I do just want to finally add as well, I have been to at least 2 conferences, and I also do not drink alcohol, so I certainly wasn't getting drunk on the ratepayers' dime, and I benefited greatly from those networks and relationships I was able to build with other elected members around the country, but also elected members from Auckland, because we don't often get that opportunity to do that within our own very large local authority. So kia ora, I'll be voting against that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Hills, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This feels like we're having this conversation a lot lately. This sort of feels like we talk about the price of everything, but never talk about the value. I think this is turning our backs on the rest of the country. I think it's mean-spirited. I think what it will look like to other parts of the country is just, oh, good old Auckland thinks they're too big and too important to be part of us. I mean, this is membership of local government New Zealand, and if we're not local government in New Zealand, then I don't know what is. I've got the release here with mention from you, Mayor Brown, thanking the Hamilton City Council for being part of LGNZ's Adopt Council campaign, where Hamilton chose to join LGNZ's Adopt a Council campaign, and they put, and I saw it across all their social medias and everything, our Mayoral Relief Fund, our bank account number, and drove donations to our relief fund. That was part of LGNZ. Over my times of going to young elected members and see people like Logan and others shine through that, there was very few young elected members in Auckland, let alone the country. I think when I first went to young elected members, it was 5 or 6% of all elected members were under 40. That's what constitutes a young elected member. We worked across the country campaigns the last 6 years, and I think we're now up to 17 or 18%. Maybe people don't like that. But that has been a big part of helping encourage people into the sector, which is really important for the future of the sector, which we know young people and a lot of people turn their backs on when we only get 35% turnout in general. I think this budget will cut LGNZ's budget significantly. I have asked, it will reduce their staff numbers, it will reduce their resources by about 25%, it will reduce their lobbying power, and they will look at us and say, well, thanks a lot. And I know other councillors around here will roll their eyes and laugh, like I've seen during this debate, as always, on issues. But I think it's really important that we show strength. If we're wanting funding tools, which we always talk about, we need more funding tools, we're getting too much responsibility. When I've been in rooms with all other sectors, all other councils, we've been sitting there saying the same thing, joined up loudly, can't do this, can't do that, we need funding tools. We're wanting to create new funding tools through the future for local government. Do you think we're going to be able to do that on our own? Do you think the government is going to give us a special thing on our own? No, they're going to want a joined up view. And if we're not in those rooms, and I've been in the policy sector, we're actually LGNZ's point on Three Waters, and we all know we all didn't agree with the way it came forward, but every council, including ours, was saying one of the biggest issues for councils was funding and financing for water infrastructure. And we still have a problem now, and people will keep complaining about how that's funded. Other councils were the same. And so I do get worried that we just keep pulling ourselves out of things because it seems nice to. I would understand if this was a debate about putting us in, and this was a new thing. but this is a collective across the whole country, and we'll be standouts on our own, and I think it'll be looking pretty petty. And I think it's a disservice to especially the young elected members, Te Maruata, people like Bill Cashmore, Penny Hulse, Pippa, Alf, who've all fought for our seats on those tables, which took 6 or 7 years to get seats on National Council, get our voices heard because we said we weren't getting heard. And other councils also used to say pretty poor things about Auckland, and I've seen that change over time as we've been able to explain ourselves, explain how we're different. And we won't get things from government if government thinks that we're the bad guy or the other councils don't like it. We know that announcements for Auckland poll badly in the rest of the country. If we can help bring ourselves up and see the importance for the rest of the country, then that works out better for us and our residents. So I am worried about this vote. Of course, I'll be not supporting B and removing ourselves from the rest of the country.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
I've been a very strong supporter of local government New Zealand in the past, but I am now. And the reason for that is that on the really important issues that we've needed support for, around Three Waters, around housing intensification, and both of those things go to the future of local government, Local Government New Zealand has taken a different position to us. And that's been entirely counterproductive. So that's a really important test for me. My view is that we're in a position to collaborate with other cities, other parts of New Zealand, be they urban, be they rural, at any time around any issues. And increasingly, you do things on an issue-by-issue basis. And across any number of issues, and I wrote them down: civil defence, fundraising, climate change, transport, infrastructure, stormwater and the like, we are actually already collaborating through our internal council departments and the like with other cities as we speak. And we do that on an ongoing basis, and we don't need Local Government New Zealand for that. Increasingly, you've got digital platforms. So over the last 10 years, our capacity to interact with other cities, other parts of New Zealand, and other parts of our community, and other cities overseas, has expanded out of sight. And we don't allocate sufficient resource and time for that. And if I was putting some money around collaboration and the like, I would be interacting with our sister cities. Brisbane, for example, that went through the flood. Hamburg, for example. Busan in South Korea, which is a port city. Taichung in Taiwan, for example. And I could enumerate any number of sister cities, especially Los Angeles, that we should have a far better relationship with and should be learning from. And these are cities around issues like climate change that are so far ahead of us, it's not funny. Our emissions continue to go up every year. And other cities, many of them are going down rapidly. And in that respect, Local Government New Zealand has been an absolute laggard as far as climate change is concerned, and around, from my perspective, the real issues of our time. So I'm more than happy to pull out of Local Government New Zealand, but I would make a plea for our participation and collaboration with other organisations, such as, for example, water-sensitive cities that we've had presentations about. We should be part of that. We should be joining with Brisbane, who presented with us around their modelling and their learnings from their flooding disasters that were significant. And we haven't done that. Organisations like Italy that we pulled out of, that is active around climate change, Covenant of Mayors, Switch, TAP, fundings for climate change, a whole range of things that we don't adequately take advantage of. And as much and all as we've got an agenda that gives us some information, it does not build the picture on what the alternative for us is outside of local government, given that we take an active, positive, collaborative, communicative role in other respects, which we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Filipaina, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know whether you can hear us properly. I'm assuming you can.
We can now.
Okay. Your Worship, I think there's some of the comments I'm going to make may not please people around the table, but I don't really care. In regards to what I've been hearing, and I watch CNN quite a bit, and I'm thinking some of the comments are being made from some of the Republican Party and listening to QAnon with some of the theories. One in particular, Your Worship, is around local government New Zealand and their position on Three Waters. That debate around local government New Zealand was a democratic debate. As a result of that debate, they ended up having to have a position. And that was a democratic process. So when I hear people using Three Waters as to their reason to support us getting out of local government New Zealand, again, I think of all that I watch on CNN. Your Worship, I heard, and I don't know who it was, and maybe Councillor Watson, and he mentioned follow the leader. I don't know who he was referring to when he said follow the leader, but what I didn't hear was follow the leader blindly. I will not be following the leader blindly. I actually have an independent voice. There are no strings attached to myself, Your Worship. And as a result, I'm not going to end up supporting the recommendation that we pull ourselves out of this, out of local government New Zealand. I have been on there, and that's Te Maruata, since 2010, was November 2010, early 2011, that the membership of Te Maruata came up for Auckland Council, and I've been a member on there. The things that we have achieved together as a Māori elected member across Aotearoa is a result of the work around Māori engagement, around the election process, around having an input even with Three Waters and other legislation. So the benefit of being in local government from myself as one of only two people, ended up at Auckland Council from a Māori heritage from 2010. The last thing I want to say, Your Worship, is that it is not guaranteed that the local boards, if they choose to end up asking for associate membership, is not guaranteed. If I was local government New Zealand, that's a very hard conversation I'll be having with the rest of the members in regards to allowing them. I hope they do if this doesn't fail, because I have a feeling that it'll mostly be going through based on follow the leader comment I heard earlier. So in regards to this, it's not going to be guaranteed with local boards. How dare we, as regional councillors and yourself as the mayor, how dare we make a decision for our local boards and pulling them out? Because as Councillor Ferry said, that's exactly what we're doing. So, Your Worship, my final comment is just to acknowledge my colleague and friend, Councillor Baker, because those, and along with the other comments that have been made, is the reason why we should be there, and we continue to stay a member of local government New Zealand. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lee and Councillor Bartley.
Thank you. I've been listening to the arguments around the table, and I respect the arguments, and perhaps the best way to respect an argument is to contribute your own argument to the discussion. Now, I've had as much to do with local government New Zealand as anyone around this table, more probably. I served on a committee of local government, the Local Government Association, as a member of the Regional Affairs Committee for 6 years. So I think I know what I'm talking about. And I've watched LGNZ over the years, and it has evolved to be, in many respects, another layer of the national bureaucracy. It has become, as Councillor Walker pointed out in his contribution, frankly, a part of the elitist Wellington Beltway power structure. A lot to do with government, that's for sure. A lot to do with power, that's for sure. But as for local government, really? No. And as for local government in Auckland, not much at all. And apparently and evidently, certainly not, it hasn't been acting in the interests of this local government here in Auckland. So I think it's time, given we are dealing with a financial crisis here in Auckland, that conferences are all very nice. Conferences for elected members and staff are all very nice, but I don't think we can justify $500,000 year on year for that privilege. And so I think we have to support the Mayor's recommendation. I think it is time to cut out the middleman. If we're going to deal with the government, it needs to be ka nohi ki ka nohi, rangatira ki rangatira, not through some sort of expensive bureaucratic middleman. So I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bartley, and that's it, I think.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support A. I don't support B. I haven't had any personal benefit myself from LGNZ conferences, but it's not about me. It's about the value of being a member of LGNZ brings to us as a city, but also, as mentioned by our young elected members who are leaders shining through in their communities. So I see the value there. I'm like thinking in my head, how come we're spending a lot of time on this when we got bigger fish to fry than talking about whether we're part of a group or not? Our communities are struggling out there and we're spending all this time talking about should we be part of this group or not. I think times are hard. We should stick together rather than ditch and run. So there's strength in numbers. I think there's a muscle there with LGNZ that maybe we haven't flexed as well as we could have, and there's opportunity to do so if we remain in the membership. So I think let's not buy into the Jaffa complex. We have as much to learn from others as they have from us. So can we please move on? Yeah, I don't support B. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. That's... Oh,
I wasn't going to speak, but I think that this is starting to really drag into stuff which is well beyond the scope of a membership or a professional organisation. Fundamentally, this is about whether you believe that you derive financial benefit from being part of a trade organisation. I won't call it the trade union for the councils, but it's a trade organisation or not. There is already funding from central government to support activities that Local Government New Zealand does to assist small councils with respect to research and policy and technical matters. if you don't have the capacity within Auckland Council to do this policy work to affect our community, then I suspect you probably won't necessarily get that through a homogenised piece of advocacy from Local Government New Zealand for the whole of the local government sector in this country. I was going to move a closure motion a long time ago, but I suspected that it was just better to let people have their say. Nothing that has been said today is persuasive, Your Worship, because if you want to enjoy the benefits of being part of a conference, being part of a conversation, then you can continue to do so as an associate member. You can pay to go to their conferences, and there's, sorry, but the government of this country, of whatever colour, is going to be interested in what this council has to say. It's called the number of voters here in Auckland, and that's why Auckland Council's opinion does count. Unfortunately, if we don't get our way, sometimes it's because the policy settings in Wellington are wrong, and Local Government New Zealand is no guarantee to change that.
Thank you. Okay, nobody's got any more, so I'll just do a little sum up. We've been persuaded to do it in an A and B, and if most people will be happy enough with A, I think. And B, if it stands, that's the end of it, and if it's C, then we have to go into a whole lot of other stuff. Let me tell you this, that if it does go to C, then I'll do my best. I have been approached by a number of mayors who actually want me to stay in so that I can come down and fix it. Well, there's quite a lot of things to fix here before I go and fix that. I haven't heard any mayors down there that say it doesn't need fixing. So if it doesn't need fixing, it must be crook. In terms of, and bearing in mind that one of the members, we have 175 elected members, which is actually the quarter of the population of the Chatham Islands, and it's the same a number as the Chatham Islands voters. So we could, just our own elected officials could become a group. I have heard the thing about the local boards, and our local boards are in majority bigger than most other councils, and we don't get them together well enough. And I can't see why, if in the order of getting together and discussing and learning, we should have a local board conference just for our local boards, and that should be at Waiheke, so the money's spent within our community. Most of the members of the local board can go down there for free because it's been pointed out by Logan, there's not many of them under 60, let alone 40. And so they could have a day down there at a vineyard, chat to each other, share all their stuff there, enjoy themselves, dance to my band and come home. So on that basis, if it does go to C, I will make my effort to try and fix it, but I really don't think I want to fix that. I've got enough to do. So we're going to propose, this has been proposed and seconded, and I'm going to go deal with A first of all. All those in favour of receiving the report? Aye. Contrary? Okay, that's good. Now I'm expecting to have a poll, what do you call it, on the second one. Division, yes, righto. It helps divide. So the second one, just to get that out of the road so I can read it out in case people get the wrong thing. This is, we agreed that we resign. So I is to get out, against is to stay in. Is that clear for everybody? Okay, you will carry this out, please, Sandra, with an R.
Councillors, you are voting on clause B. Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Bartley.
Against.
Councillor Dalton.
Against.
Councillor Darby.
Against.
Councillor Ferry.
Against.
Councillor Filipina.
Against.
Councillor Foley.
Against.
Councillor Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Hills.
No, thank you.
Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Leone.
Carl.
Councillor Newman.
For.
Councillor Sayers.
For.
Deputy Mayor Simpson. Councillor Stewart.
For.
Councillor Turner. Councillor Walker. Councillor Watson.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
I believe that might be 10 all, so Your Worship, you have a casting vote.
In that case, I'll vote for.
So that's carried on the casting vote.
Now, that's good. We can move on to item 13.